There used to be a job in parts of rural England and Wales called a sin eater. When someone was dying, and their sins were too heavy to carry into whatever came next, a stranger would be paid a few coins to eat a meal off the corpse's chest, bread, salt, sometimes ale, and in doing so, take those sins into himself. The dead moved on clean. The sin eater did not. He kept every single one. Walter has done this job for 31 years. Tonight, I want you to understand exactly what that costs, because tonight, something is going to go very wrong. This is the 11th house Walter's visited this year. He knows the walk without thinking about it, 40 minutes from the last bus stop, past the old mill, up the hill where the road turns to gravel. He doesn't ask who's dying before he arrives. He's learned not to. Knowing in advance only makes the 7 bites harder to swallow. Every family that calls him is ashamed of it. That's the strange part of this job. People need him, and resent needing him, in almost the same breath. He's not clergy. He's not family. He's a service, like a plumber, except what he's fixing is a soul on its way out the door. Here's what Walter doesn't know yet. Standing on this porch, the man dying inside isn't the one who called for him. It's the son. The son is 44 years old, has never once visited his father in the 11 years since the old man moved out here alone, and tonight, for reasons Walter is about to find out the hard way, he wants Walter in that room. The son doesn't say much. Just leads him down the hall, past photographs Walter notices but doesn't comment on, a boy on a bicycle, a boy at a birthday party, always alone in the frame, never with his father. Walter's learned to read a house before he ever reaches the room. This one is telling him a story already, and it isn't a kind one. The ritual is simple, and Walter's done it enough times that his hands move without his mind having to lead them. Bread and salt, laid over the heart, left to sit until it's absorbed what needs absorbing. 7 bites, never 6, never 8, nobody currently alive remembers why it's 7. Walter's stopped asking. Some rules you just follow because the alternative, improvising with something like this, feels far more dangerous than blind tradition ever could. What Walter eats doesn't disappear. It moves into him. Every regret, every cruelty, every quiet, unforgivable thing he's swallowed for 31 years is still in there somewhere, filed away in a place even he doesn't fully understand. He's not a saint for doing this. He's a container. There's a difference, and by the end of tonight, it's going to matter more to him than it ever has before. Bite 1. Small things. Petty cruelties. A man who was short-tempered with his wife for decades and never once apologized for it. This is ordinary. This is most of what Walter eats, most nights, the everyday failures people carry and never resolve. He can handle ordinary. Ordinary is the job. Bites 2 and 3. Heavier now, a business he ran into the ground and let his partners take the blame for, a lie he told at his own brother's funeral that he never corrected. Walter's stomach turns, the way it always does around this point. This is the part of the job nobody envies. This is also, still, within the range of what he expects. Bite 4. Something's wrong. Walter's felt regret before. Cruelty. Even a murder or two over the years, those have a taste, if you do this long enough, a specific metallic weight behind the tongue. This is different. This tastes like a child. And the man dying in this bed, as far as Walter or anyone else has ever known, never had children. The son is standing in the doorway behind Walter right now, and has been for the last several minutes, watching closely. He didn't bring Walter here for his father's sins at all. He brought Walter here because confession requires a listener, and Walter is the only kind of listener who is legally, spiritually, and permanently obligated to keep what is told, a listener who cannot testify, cannot report, cannot even fully explain what he knows to another living person. Bite 5. Walter finally looks up. The son doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. Walter has done this job long enough to know the difference between grief standing in a doorway and guilt standing in a doorway. He's seen both more times than he can count. This, unmistakably, is the second one. I can't tell you exactly what happened to that child. That's not mine to give you. Some things stay in the file and stay there. What I can tell you is that Walter's job has one rule nobody ever writes down anywhere, because nobody wants to say it out loud. You eat what's put in front of you, and you don't get to choose whose sin it actually is, or how it got mixed in with the dying man's. For the first time in 31 years, Walter considers stopping. Setting the bowl down, walking out the door and leaving 2 bites uneaten and a ritual unfinished. He's heard of sin eaters refusing before. It's rare, it's whispered about, and it never ends well for anyone in the room. He looks at the son. The son looks back, and doesn't blink, and doesn't move to stop him if he decides to leave. He finishes it, not because he forgives the son, and not because he believes the dying man deserves to leave clean. He finishes it because somewhere in this house, whatever happened to that child, somebody has to carry it so it stops moving through this family unaddressed. Walter has spent his whole life believing that's worth something. Tonight is the first night is not entirely sure. Bite 7. Done. Walter stands, packs his bag, same motions as always, the ritual doesn't change just because tonight did. He won't say a word to the son. He never does, that's not his place, and it never has been. But something's different as he closes the bag. His hands are shaking. Walter's hands have not shaken since the war. He'll carry that son's sin the same way he carries every other one, quietly, permanently, alone, with no ceremony and no acknowledgement. There's no sin eater for the sin eater. Nobody comes to Walter's door when it's his turn. That's the part of this job nobody warns you about before you take it, and by the time you understand it, you've already been doing it for decades. He'll sit like this for a long while tonight, the way he always does after a hard one. He won't call anyone. There's no one left to call. The job's sort of that, over the years, the way it always does. Just Walter, a cold cup of tea, and 31 years of other people's worst moments, sitting quietly behind his eyes where nobody else will ever have to look at them. The father died 40 minutes after Walter left. Clean, as far as anyone in that house will ever know. The son will tell people his father passed peacefully. That part, at least, will be true. What won't be mentioned, not at the funeral, not ever, is where the rest of it went, and who's carrying it now, 40 minutes away, alone in a small kitchen with a cold cup of tea. So the next time you hear about a job like Walter's, and it sounds almost noble, eating someone's sins so they can die clean, remember what it actually means. Somebody has to be the last place a bad thing goes, and nobody's coming to collect it from him afterward. Tonight, Walter found out the hard way that not every sin on the plate belongs to the person dying. Same time next week, I have another file. This one's a phone number, one that used to belong to somebody else.